Hey, what's going on, everybody? I apologize for starting this late. I am doing this from my phone. I tried doing it from my desktop, and I just shared my story for about 15 minutes, and it didn't even work. So I've had a little practice round. But to introduce you guys to me, my name is Matt Bourget. I'm the Director of Marketing at Wasatch Crest. My role entails working with the marketing team, the admissions team, the alumni team, and I've worked for Wasatch Crest in different capacities over the years, and the place is home to me. My sobriety date is December 1st, 2014. I started working in this industry shortly after that. My hope for sharing some of my story and sharing a message with you guys today is to maybe educate and bring a little experience around treatment and recovery in general, for those that are curious, those have family members that they know are struggling and just need some more information. One thing I love about Wasatch Crest is a lot of our staff are in recovery, and a lot of them have videos just like this talking about their recovery story, and I believe that those are on our Facebook here as well. To give you some insight on what we do at Wasatch Crest, we are a residential outpatient substance abuse treatment facility that also works with co-occurring mental health. What we find is a lot of times the two go hand in hand. So to give you a little insight on my story, I want to focus a little bit more on the message than the mess, but I will qualify myself a little bit. I struggled with substance use for about 5 years, from my late teens to my early 20s. My primary drugs of choice were opiates, heroin, and benzos. I'm a Utah local. I grew up in Utah County, and had a very good childhood. Lots of times that people in recovery or people that have struggled with substance use, lots of times there is trauma that they're self-medicating, from childhood. That wasn't my story. That wasn't the case with me. I had a very good childhood. But growing up, I just kind of felt out of place, I guess you could say. Not really feeling like I fit in with my peers, with my family. And so by the time I was in high school and started experimenting with substances, I kind of found what I was looking for and felt like I had, found that acceptance, found that ease, that comfort. And I think that is something that defines an addict versus a normal person, for lack of a better word. I think that substances did something a little different to me. And so I dove into it. I felt like it was pretty innocent at first. And, I hear often that addiction is the only disease that tells you you're not sick. And I did such a good job of convincing myself that I wasn't sick, that I didn't have a problem. As my drug addiction just got worse and worse, and I dove into heavier and heavier things. I always had this attitude of, I got myself into this, I can get myself out. This is nobody else's problem but mine, and it doesn't affect anybody except me. I also had this attitude of, nobody knows what it's like to be me. Nobody knows what it's like to feel the way I'm feeling. And I know today that can't be further from the truth. As I entered into a life of recovery, I found that there is countless people out there that know what it's like to feel the way that I felt in my disease. And more importantly, countless people that are out there that were willing to help me. And that's what I get to do today, is help people that have been where I've been. And that gives me great purpose in my life. I'm so fortunate to work in an industry and work for a company that lets me help other people. My first experience with treatment was in the summer of 2013. My family intervened on me with fear that I would say no and run away, and that's exactly what I did. When I, left my house, I went to see if, some of my using friends would take me in, and all of them said the same thing that my family said to me, and that was get help. And that was a real wake-up call to me that people that I'm using drugs with are like, no, dude, you need to get sober. And so I gave my first treatment center a try. And I went into that treatment program thinking that it would be like jail, more or less. Thinking that it would be very strict and rigid and we'd just be sitting in a circle talking all day. All I really knew of treatment is what I was shown on TV or on movies. And what I found is it is vastly different than it's portrayed in the media. Treatment was such a great experience for me. What I equate treatment to is it's a training ground for life. I went into treatment and I experienced the full range of emotions, good and bad. And I got to be in a safe place to experience that. I was the type of person that if I was happy, I had to use. If I was sad, I had to use. If I was angry, I had to use. And that was my coping mechanism, and it wasn't a very good one. What I learned in treatment was healthy coping mechanisms to where I can deal with my emotions, I can deal with life on life's terms without consequences. I feel like oftentimes with people struggling with substance use, that's what they're after, is some relief. And there's healthy ways to achieve that. And I learned those in treatment to where when I was out of treatment, I could apply those things. Unfortunately, relapse is part of my story. It doesn't have to be with a lot of people, but sometimes it is. I ended up doing 4 residential treatment programs and spent a total of 7 months between those 4 stays in treatment. Every time I went to treatment, it was a little bit different. I feel like it's so easy for people to beat themselves up and be discouraged if there is a relapse. What I've learned today, looking back on that, is that anytime there was a slip or a relapse or another treatment stay, it didn't take away from my experience and what I learned from the previous times. I had a therapist tell me in treatment that, addiction being like any other disease, I think she used the example of cancer. Sometimes people do 1 round of chemo and things are good and they're in remission. Sometimes people have to do 3 or 4 rounds. I'm one of those people that had to do a few rounds. So my point in telling you that is that, it's sometimes it takes what it takes. And slipping up is not a reason to give up. There's always hope. By the time I was ending my treatment stays, I had actively avoided 12-step programs and was fortunate enough to go to a treatment center that was 12-step integrated. For those of you that don't know what that means, 12-step integrated means it's just an introduction to the 12 steps. They will show you what it's about, and take you to some meetings and help support you in that if that's something that you're wanting to do. And that's what we do at Wasatch Crest. I've heard one thing that stuck with me that I really like is there's millions of people in this country that are living in recovery, which means that there's millions of different ways to do it. I think at Wasatch Crest we try and cast a wide net and introduce our clients to a lot of different support groups and modalities of treatment to help people afterwards. For me, that was 12-step. That's where I was seeing people doing well in life and picking up significant time. And so that's something that I dove into heavily when I got out of treatment, my last treatment stay. I mentioned before that I started working in the industry shortly after. And this is something that I see a lot of people do. People from a lot of different backgrounds and work experience will get into a life of recovery and find that they want to help people. I think that having having purpose in my life has really helped me out in my recovery. And what I've learned in recovery is to help other people. Forgive me if I already said this, because I mentioned that I thought I was live before, but a saying that I really like is the purpose of life is to find a life with purpose, you know, and I'm so blessed and grateful to have a life with purpose today. You know, I've got great relationships today, personally, professionally, you know, and that's something I didn't have before getting into a life of recovery. You know, if anybody out there is struggling or knows somebody that is struggling, there's so many people out there that are willing to help. You know, we've got great admissions and business development team here at Wasatch Crest that is always ready and available to help. We've got a lot of information on our website, and I believe there's a link to that on our Facebook page. You guys, I'm really grateful to be able to talk a little bit about my story and about recovery in general. This last year has been a little bit crazy, and I haven't had the opportunity to do things like this very often. So this is something that really helps me out in my recovery, and I appreciate the time to share a little bit about my journey with you. So again, if there's anything we can do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out, and thank you again.